Hello everybody, I am Dr. Hans Diehl and I'm delighted to be with you to contribute to the success of the 3rd Annual International Conference on Lifestyle Medicine in Islamabad in Pakistan. This 3rd Annual Lifestyle Medicine Conference is a great and exciting undertaking of bringing the lifestyle medicine concepts to health professionals and to the community at large. You know, it's estimated that 30 to 40% of Pakistan's causes of death are now related to common chronic diseases like heart disease, strokes, diabetes, overweight, and hypertension. And despite best efforts, the high-tech medicine approach has not yet found a cure for these non-communicable diseases. Modern medicine does a great job in diagnosing disease, providing outstanding emergency care, and many of the modern drugs can wipe out many infectious diseases in less than 2 weeks. What modern medicine can do for you is to make you feel better by alleviating the discomfort and the pain, to take care of the symptoms. That's so important. But cures for these increasingly common chronic diseases are elusive and rare. When medical cures for these diseases are indeed rare, even so, chronic diseases can be cured. How? Well, with an enlightened, intelligent lifestyle and self-care that will activate your body's innate ability to heal itself. This prominently involves a simple, more traditional diet of foods as grown, advocated by Dr. Susan Blum in her best-selling book. She says, afflicted by chronic disease, changing the food you eat is the single most powerful lifestyle change you can make to restore your health. And Dr. Walter Willett, professor of nutrition at the Harvard University School of Medicine, writes, epidemiologists, people who study the difference in the frequency of disease in different environments, have long known the majority of our killer diseases are dietary and lifestyle factors. So my topic today is disease reversal. Live with all your heart. I want to share with you 3 case studies from our CHIP program, the Complete Health Improvement Program, a proven intensive therapeutic lifestyle change program with over 110,000 graduates and with clinical results published in more than 50 medical articles. Have you ever noticed that when you ask an audience the day after a given lecture, how was the presentation? They often say, oh, it was very interesting. And if you probe just a little bit more, they may say, oh, it was very good. It was very, very good. Well, is there anything you liked in particular? Something that really stood out? Some details? It was outstanding. It was very well done. A great speaker. And you see what's happening? It's the day after that brilliant lecture and it's already gone and forgotten. But when you tell people the story, they remember, because with the story also come emotions, and we latch on to emotions. Emotions help us to remember. So here is my first disease reversal story, the Robert Anderson story from cardiac cripple to champion. It was 10 minutes to 7 that evening. 1,500 people were waiting for me in the town of Vernon in British Columbia in Canada to start my 4th lecture of my CHIP program, which spans a series of 18 sessions. I knew that many of these people were of German heritage, and that meant punctuality was very important to these people. It was just then, as I was moving towards the stage, that a man rushed me. Hi, Dr. Diehl, I'm Bob Anderson. You remember me? I was one of 400 CHIP graduates in the town of Creston. My wife Teresa and I drove 6 hours to be here to surprise you and to tell you what happened to us. But you know, as much as I wanted to listen to him, at that moment, I just couldn't do it. The clock was ticking. 3 more minutes to go. But then I had a bright idea and I made him an offer. Bob, I cannot do it right now, but would you mind sharing your stories not only with me, but with all of your new CHIP participants here? And to my surprise, he said, yes, sir, I think I can do it. And you know, right on the button at 7 o'clock sharp, I stepped onto the platform. I welcomed the people and I introduced my special guest, Bob Anderson, who with his wife Teresa had driven 6 hours to tell me what happened to them as graduates of the CHIP program in Creston. And then I made my first mistake. I gave him the microphone. I should have known better. You never give the microphone to people unless you know what they're going to say, especially when you have a large public crowd. And so Bob took the mic and he said, ladies and gentlemen, it is true. We drove more than 6 hours to come from Creston to see you here and to tell you, pointing at me, don't believe everything that this man is telling you. And for an encore, he said, and again pointing at me, this man cost us $30,000. I was stunned. I was no longer sure that it had been a bright idea for me to offer him to address the crowd. During the 3 previous nights, I had established myself as a credible speaker, and here, in the 4th night, this man pulled the rug right out from underneath me. I stood there like a king without clothes, naked. My credibility was shot, and it had only taken 1 sentence, and it was over. Well, first I thought I didn't quite hear right. But let me share with you some of my concepts of behavioral change, which is so essential when it comes to making healthier food choices. You see, over the years, I had learned that it's very important to develop an understanding among your listening audience. You must build concepts. That's why in my first 3 lectures, I usually talk about the results of our screening program. I explain infectious diseases. They relate largely to some infective germ, to some pathogen that an antibiotic can knock out in 10 days flat. I explain chronic diseases. They relate largely to our lifestyle, how we eat and drink, sleep and exercise, and smoke and booze. And then I discuss why these chronic diseases stay and last forever. Is there anything we can do about them? And then I begin to talk to them about risk factors that drive this underlying disease process. And then on my 4th night, that's the big night, I talk about the primacy of diet. That's the game changer. That's my big lecture. That's when I talk about the relationship of diet to disease. I mean, I am a gradualist. I'm moving slowly and with sensitivity because I know that change must come from within. You just cannot dictate to people, as of tomorrow, no more M&Ms, no more chocolates, no more potato chips, no more meat. You just can't do this. People must discover this for themselves. They must be ready, and the change must come from within. And so, as I was listening to Bob, I expected him to talk for about 3 or 4 minutes, but once he got started, he had no thought of quitting. He enjoyed telling his story, and he told it. And there was nothing I could do because he had the mic. He was in charge. And so he told them, wherever I would go, a shadow followed me. It was a box, 7 feet long and 3 feet wide. And I knew I would be in that box any day now because I had shortness of breath. My angina was crippling me. And to pick up my mail, I couldn't walk to my mailbox some 70 meters away. I mean, I had to drive there with my old jalopy, my rundown car. And beyond this, I had a serious case of arthritis. I was overweight and I was depressed. So when Teresa and I were driving home after our 3rd night after our CHIP program in Creston 4 months ago, she was telling me, you know, Bob, I am actually sick and tired of being sick and tired. Bob, you are in the hospital on a regular basis. Your angina is not improving. Your shortness of breath is not getting any better. Bob, I'm really scared looking into the future and seeing myself as a widow. We need to make some changes. Now, when we get home tonight, we're going to make some changes, Bob. It's time, don't you think? So we drove home. We got into the house, and first thing I noticed, she was at the fireplace, and she said, Bob, what about those Marlboro cigarettes, those cartons you love? Come on, here's the match. Let's take care of it. Well, actually, I knew within my heart that it was time to make the break. And so I put that match to these cartons of Marlboro cigarettes with that wonderful aroma. I knew it would be my last time, and so I knelt in front of the fireplace. I knew it would be my last time, and I sucked it in as deeply and as slowly as possible. And then she said, now, let's go down to the basement. And pointing to our two large horizontal freezers, she said, Bob, let's clean them out now. I mean, I looked at her in shock. Teresa, the doctor has not said anything about diet. Well, she said, he did. He said, if it has a mother or a face, don't eat it too often. Yeah. But he didn't say anything about, Bob, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I don't want to be a widow. Let's clean them out now. She had taken over as the new sergeant in our family. I felt the gun on my chest. There was not anything I could do about it. She opened those large olive green garbage bags, and the sirloin steaks disappeared. Then the chicken, then the pork chops, and then the cheese, and then those sausages. The only thing left in those freezers in the end were some raspberries and some beans and some spinach. And then she took me to the kitchen with another large olive green garbage bag. And she said, Bob, next, we're going to clean out that kitchen. And so she went to the freezer compartment of the fridge, and she took out all my favorite Haagen-Dazs ice cream. No! And while he was telling his story, I was getting increasingly nervous. I mean, he was taking away so many foods that most people love, and it makes life worthwhile to them. Could he be ruining my program? And then, Bob, I don't want to face my future as a widow. We're going to clean it out tonight. Ice cream is just fat and sugar. Come on, let's get it out. And then she took me to the pantry. And there I saw my favorite M&Ms. I saw my favorite potato chips. And I thought to myself, I'm safe here. No mother, no face. And I told her, Teresa, the doctor said no animal products. And she said, come on, Bob. I remember he said something about if the food is refined, don't eat it too often. Once we had taken care of all those pantry shelves, she then took me to a wet bar. Oh, I love that red wine. Oh, I love my whiskey after a day's hard work. It would help me to relax. And then I looked longingly at my favorite drinks, and I told her, look, this wine is made from grapes. They're good for you. And look at my whiskey. That's made from grains. And grains are also on the program, right? Come on, she said. These are highly refined foods. These are empty calories. They have little, if any, nutritional value. Come on, Bob. And so he told the audience, we poured it all down the drain. It was a day to remember. When we finally finished our extreme makeover at 2 o'clock in the morning, I turned to Teresa and said, Teresa, with everything gone, what are we going to have in the morning for breakfast? And yeah, here's my question for you. When you get back home after this Congress and you look around your kitchen, around your freezers, around your pantry, what more traditional foods will you find that are really coming directly from nature, such as vegetables and fruits, and whole grain products, and beans and lentils, and perhaps some nuts and avocados? Or is your kitchen filled like Bob's and Teresa's, with processed foods like chips and M&Ms, or taste sensations, addictive foods that are difficult to resist? Or with chicken nuggets and sirloin steaks and pork chops, foods that are convenient, readily available, and heavily marketed, foods made for profit, not for health? Now, in the meantime, I checked my watch. Bob's 3 to 4 minutes of telling his story had already turned into a 35-minute stretch. It was obvious. This now retired 66-year-old builder loved the stage. And then he told the audience, you know, we made all these changes after just that third lecture. Now, while most of the people in our class only gradually adopted Dr. Deal's dietary principles, we had implemented them already after the third session. And as a result, at the end of the 4-week program, when we got our clinical results, guess what? Teresa and I had the biggest weight loss, we had the biggest cholesterol drop, we had the best blood pressure. My blood pressure has actually dropped so much that my doctor had to gradually remove my blood pressure pills. My chest pain, my angina had begun to drop off, and Teresa's diabetic blood sugars had come down as well. At the same time, I'd gotten gradually into our walking program. But after several weeks, I got kind of bored with all that walking, and so we drove to a bike shop, and I bought myself a 21-gear titanium bike. Oh, it was a beauty. It was fabulous. And then on the way home, my wife turned to me and she said, you know, Bob, do you realize that you just spent $2,000 on your bike for yourself? What about me? Wow, you want to have a bike too? No. I don't want a bike. I just want a piano, a used piano that would probably cost about $1,500, but then I want to also set aside some $500 for my piano lessons. And I began to compute the numbers. $2,000 for Bob, $2,000 for Teresa. That's $4,000. But didn't he say something about that I cost them $30,000? Well, because they felt so good now, it wasn't long before they bought a brand new car for $26,000. And that was $30,000. This man there, he said, pointing at me again, that man cost us a lot of money. And then he said, and you know something else? I'm now getting ready for the ride of my life from Creston on the west coast of Canada to Ottawa, Canada's capital, on the east coast. I'm going to ride that bike 4,000 kilometers. I'm going to get that clearance from my cardiologist, and when that's done, I'll be ready next year. Boy, I could tell he was feeling high, and I was feeling low. This man coming from Creston, a graduate of our CHIP program there, had destroyed my gradualist approach to behavioral change. Instead, he had told his class, no more chips, no more M&Ms, no more meat, no more salamis, no more cheese, no more red wine, no more taste. I mean, this man had destroyed my whole program. No one would come back to another lecture. It was over. Furthermore, he had already talked for over 50 minutes. He had taken all my time that I urgently needed for my most important fourth lecture, the game changer, discussing the diet and disease relationship. There was no more time for me to do anything. All I could say was, thank you, Bob. You've really inspired us, and sent the people home. But I was worried. I was petrified. I sensed, I knew that this would be our last night of the scheduled 18 sessions. This was Thursday night. After this session, no one would be coming back on Monday. The program was over. I had made two mistakes. Number one, I'd given him the mic, and number two, I didn't tell him, you got 5 minutes. And I began to think about calling Lily, my wife, and telling her about Bob Anderson, who had ruined my CHIP program on the 4th night in Vernon, and that I was probably coming home soon. Well, Monday night came. I'd driven to the lecture hall just out of curiosity. The parking lot was full. It was crowded. I mean, it was packed. And I figured, oh, they must have replaced my chip program with a wine and cheese party or something like that. And so, as I opened the door to the auditorium to see how many people were there, I mean, I was shocked. The place was filled. As I recognized some of my chippers there, I turned to one of them and I said, listen, what are you doing here? But sir, this is our program, session number 5, isn't it? They were all there. So I ran to my car, I got my computer, and I keyed in programs number 4 and 5. I would combine these 2 lectures tonight because the chippers unexpectedly had come back. And as I looked at my watch, it was 2 minutes to 7 o'clock. 2 minutes to go. I dashed to the front of the auditorium, to the podium, and I welcomed everyone to our chip program. Tonight, I said, I will be combining lectures 4 and 5. And more than 1,500 people looked at me and they said, but where is Bob? They brought their friends and their neighbors to hear Bob, not me. They wanted to hear his clear, simple, and direct message. They didn't want this educated, gradualist approach. Instead, just tell us what we need to do, we'll do it. In the end, this Vernon Chip program became one of our most successful programs because Bob had really inspired these people with his direct approach. And what happened to Bob after sharing his legendary story on that 4th night? He went back to Creston, his hometown, and he trained for his bicycle ride across Canada. He covered over 4,000 kilometers in 60 days. When he arrived in Ottawa, the television crews had followed him across Canada to capture the enthusiasm of this 68-year-old man. It was the same man who only 2 years ago could not walk to his mailbox 70 meters away, but instead had to use his old jalopy of a car to drive there. And now he had covered 4,000 kilometers on his 21-gear titanium bike. A cardiac cripple had turned into a champion. Later, I asked him, Bob, did you really get clearance from your cardiologist? I mean, somewhat astonished, he said, Dr. Deal, didn't you tell me and didn't you show me angiograms that heart disease was indeed reversible? Well, I told my cardiologist about that. Initially, with disbelief, he looked at my results at 4 weeks, after 6 months, and after 2 years, and he saw my big drop in cholesterol. He saw my weight loss. He put me on the treadmill, and he registered no angina pain. And he said, well, I don't fully understand this, but I give you clearance for your Trans-Canada ride. Wow. When they asked Bob later what enabled him to travel 4,000 kilometers on a bike across Canada, he said, number 1, it's the food. Eat simple foods, foods as grown, the way it comes in nature, simply prepared. Number 2, burn holes into the soles of your shoes and not the tires of your car. Exercise every day. And number 3, avoid harmful substances like cigarettes and alcohol and too much caffeine. And number 4, he said, have an attitude of gratitude and believe that God didn't waste time in making a nobody. You were made to succeed. Over the next many years, Bob supervised the building of a new home for his physician. But beyond this, Bob also became a softer man because the inner man was changing as well. When reviewing his life at age 86, Bob turned to Teresa. I'm so glad that our physician referred us to the CHIP program and that my cardiologist agreed to let me do this special ride across Canada to inspire thousands of people that followed me on television. Because of the changes we made in our lifestyle, I've had 20 extra years And 18 out of these 20 years were really good years. I'm so grateful. Transformed from cardiac cripple to champion. There's no greater joy for me as a care provider with over 100,000 CHIP graduates to see such a transformation. Perhaps these graduates didn't all have the same experience. Perhaps they didn't all ride 4,000 kilometers on a bike. Perhaps they didn't all run marathons. But most of them were able to find a new freedom to explore the richness of life again, or to find a new freedom from the medications that control but rarely cure. The clinical results of the CHIP program now have been published in more than 40 peer-reviewed medical articles. They are no longer under debate. They document what happens when people make serious lifestyle changes, when they move towards a simple traditional diet, coupled with a daily exercise program and avoiding harmful substances, and when they become a nicer person. There's no greater joy for a care provider than to see happy patients becoming healthy again and living with all of their hearts. Now let me share with you story number 2. And let me prepare you that not all stories are as smooth and as easy as the story of Bob Anderson. Here's a story of Boyd Brenner. He was an unlikely turnaround. Could we really help this man, I wondered? I mean, as I looked over the crowd in Kalamazoo, Michigan, there were 300 people and another 18-session CHIP program. But I didn't have to look very long. I spotted him right away. He was sitting like this. I mean, that was body language, and I knew what that meant. It said, I really don't want to be here. And during our break time, I approached him and I said, hi, it's nice to meet you, sir. What brings you here? And he said, my wife. Oh, your wife? And why is she here? Oh, she wants to lose some weight. I mean, I don't think she has to, but you know, she's a woman and they have their own ideas. Oh, I see. And just then, a lady approached us. I moved towards her, and then I asked her quietly, is this your husband? Yes, it is. And what brings you here? And she said, my husband. He's 57 years of age. He had to retire because of health problems. He has heart disease. He has had 9 heart attacks, 2 bypass surgeries, and again, incessant anginal pain, chest pain, because 3 of his major coronary arteries are closed up again. I just didn't know what to do. He has been a diabetic for 5 years. He has been 65 pounds overweight. His cholesterol is very, very high. He already has had his gallbladder taken out. He had high blood pressure for the last 13 years, and he's on 3 different medications. He has gouty arthritis, lots of pain on medication, and his triglycerides are above 2,000. And after 9 heart attacks, he's still smoking his pipe. And I asked myself, what could I do for my man? And so she said, the hospital was promoting the CHIP program, and I thought maybe we should try this one as a last resort. We had been to the Mayo Clinic several times. They'd given him the best medications, and I mean, look at some of the medications for his angina, his hypertension, his sky-high triglycerides. In addition, he has been on blood thinners, and he's taking 67 units of insulin for his diabetes. This man is a sick puppy. And she said, sir, he is no longer able to lie down at night. He has breathing problems, sleep apnea. He's now in his own room. We put his bed at a slant, and then we tried to help him sleep in a recliner. But no consistent relief from his angina pain can be found. And now he's walking the floor all night long until daybreak. Day in, day out. Imagine, he can't even get to his mailbox, which is only 30 meters away, without having 2 or 3 angina attacks, chest pain. Sir, we don't know what to do, But my hope is that this program can motivate him to make some of the needed changes. I'm all behind it. I will do everything for him. I love this man. And so I saw the disconnect between husband and wife when it comes to lifestyle changes. The next day, at break time, I was looking for him again. Of course, he was easy to find in the crowd, just like this again. But now, I knew his name, and I said, "Hi, Mr. Brenner, how are you today?" Disgruntled and sullen, he barked, "Why are you seeing me again? Why do you pick on me? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to change my lifestyle? Are you trying to change me? You cannot change me. I'm a German." And I said, "I understand, sir." Apparently he didn't know that I was a German too. And then he said, "Look, you need to understand something. I cannot change. That's just the way I am. That's the way it is. I've made my peace with myself, and I'm just here to help my wife." It was obvious there was not much I could do for Mr. Boyd Brenner. Looking for some help, I finally talked to a psychologist, to my daughter Carmen. I said, "Carmen, tell me, what can I do with this man? He's not interested in adopting to any of my suggestions. He's not open to the educational concepts. He does not see a need for making some changes. What can I do?" And she said to me, "Dad, don't push him. Just be nice to him. Just ask him some questions about his life. Make him comfortable. Ask him, does he have any dreams left? What are his goals? Let him think about his goals, and maybe he begins to realize that if he made some changes, he might have better health, which could make it easier for him to fulfill these goals." Well, I thought of my daughter's counsel, and then I saw him 2 days later, and I said to him, "Hi, Mr. Brenner, how are things going for you today?" And he said, "Well, I've been thinking about how you're always picking on me. I want you to know what's going on, and that is, I'm a man of the Mayo Clinic. You know, that's the best clinic in America. And at the Mayo Clinic, they told me nothing more could be done clinically for me. They told me, you are on the best of medications. It's your genetics. You didn't pick your father and mother very wisely. It's genetics. You got to learn to live with it. There's nothing that we can do to help you anymore." And so I turned to him and I confirmed, "Yes, I understand. The Mayo Clinic means a lot to you. It's one of the finest in the country. But by the way, I've heard from your wife that you have a very special passion for hunting. Is that right?" "Oh, yes. I'm a big-time hunter. I'm hunting exotic animals in Canada. I like bear and caribou and seal and deer. These are my favorite dishes." And sort of as an afterthought, he offered, "Well, actually, you seem to be a pretty decent guy. Now, when my wife's program is over, when it's finally done, I would like for you to come to my house. And then I want to take you down to my basement. I have 5 freezers there, full of exotic meats like bear meat and caribou and deer and seal. It's all there, and I want to show you what a real man eats." Yeah, actually, I had been told by his wife that he could easily finish a 2-pound roast in one sitting. I knew I had my work cut out for me. You see, the Mayo Clinic at that time was not aware of the emerging science of epigenetics, where your lifestyle can override the genes to express themselves. And so, with the best knowledge we had at that time, the Mayo Clinic was working on the assumption that obviously you inherit genes from your parents. Healthy genes on the left side of the slide contribute to your health, and diseased genes on the other side can contribute to disease. Now, the diseased genes usually clean themselves up. They don't express themselves. They repair themselves in most cases. But if they don't, then they become the influencers of disease. What Mr. Brenner didn't know was that DNA does not have to be your destiny, because you can change the expression of your genes. We now understand that there are off and on switches on these genes, and these off and on switches can be influenced by what we eat, by our lifestyle. Please read with me from a scientific article. Here it is. Comprehensive lifestyle changes cause beneficial changes in the expressions of many genes in just months. Downregulated genes include those promoting inflammation, oxidative stress, all associated with atherosclerotic circulation-related diseases, and oncogenes that code for cancers of the breast, the prostate, and the colon. But the good news is, that's the message of epigenetics. We can overwrite these disease-coding genes based on our lifestyle. Look at it again. You see the same parent and newborn genomes. And then you go to the right-hand side and you see the disease genes. They're there. But they don't have to code for disease, because through nutritional interception, you can actually successfully interrupt the expression of these genes coding for disease. That's good news. And so we now have a better understanding. To summarize this concept, through the concepts of epigenetics, we have learned that we can suppress the expression of disease-coding genes. We have learned that we can change them within months. At the same time, we can also enhance and strengthen the genes that usually express themselves to promote health. We can make them stronger. Obviously, Mr. Brenner was not aware of this game-changing breakthrough in the scientific community. Genes were no longer our destiny. We had some say over them. When he saw me coming the next time, he was already upset because he knew I was going to have something again to tell him. But I followed my daughter's advice. So I just told him, Mr. Brenner, I was just wondering about some of your goals. Aside from being a big hunter, are there some other things that you enjoy doing? Oh yeah, I'm a big fisherman. So what are you going to catch? Oh, them big ones, 65 to 85 pounders. You know, that would be about 30 to 40 kilos. Wow, where are you going to catch them? Oh, I'm going to go to Costa Rica, to Central America. Really? And when are you going to do this? Oh, in 6 months. And I looked at him straight into the eyes and I said, Mr. Brenner, you're not going to Costa Rica in 6 months. You are a sick man. And I thought to myself, just having a little bait on his hook and having a fish nibbling on it, that alone would get him so excited that he would have an angina attack. So I thought, this might be the time to give him some reality orientation. And so I told him straight, Mr. Brenner, it's not going to happen. And he looked at me and his eyes turned icy cold. And he said in a threatening voice, you want to bet? Mark my word. I'm going to be in Costa Rica in 6 months to catch them big ones. And I'm going to send the picture to you. Mark my word. At that moment, I realized that the better part of wisdom for me was to look for the nearest exit. He was dangerous. Now, in the meantime, Mr. Brenner had learned that the underlying disease process for heart disease and angina was atherosclerosis. He had learned that this was a progressive disease. It was a systemic disease that could affect most major arteries in the human body. He had also learned that certain risk factors were the drivers of this underlying disease process. And these risk factors were largely under the control of our lips, of our dietary choices. Most importantly, he learned that this disease could be created and it could be reversed. in many animal species, such as in monkeys, but he also learned about human studies carried out by Dr. Dean Ornish and by Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn at the Cleveland Clinic. Now, Dr. Ornish had shown that lifestyle medicine concepts could indeed reverse heart disease. He had scientifically proven that people could open their blocked arteries without drugs or surgery. He guided them through a rigorous lifestyle program, an intensive education program. And here you have Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, a famous surgeon at the Cleveland Clinic, who demonstrated that serious heart disease patients were able to again reverse their coronary artery disease processes and extend their lives by using a simple, whole food, plant-based diet. And take a look. Here you see the actual angiograms from one of the patients that document a once greatly narrowed coronary artery with little blood flow now being totally restored within 32 months without medication, without surgery, without stenting, just by making some simple dietary changes. Mr. Brenner also learned from the work of Professor James Anderson that some 50 to 75% of type 2 diabetics on insulin and 80 to 90% on those pills could normalize their blood sugars and be off these medications within weeks if they changed their diet. And here is what we had recommended to Mr. Brenner and to those in the CHIP program. This is the eating continuum. On the left side, in the red triangle, you see the typical Western diet of meats, dairy, eggs, processed foods, alcohol, and caffeine. On the other side, in the green triangle, you see more traditional foods such as fruits and vegetables, whole grains, lots of legumes like beans and lentils, some nuts and seeds, and plenty of water to drink. And at the top, on the left side, you find the worst health outcomes. That's where you find most of the chronic diseases. But on the right-hand side, on the top, you find the best health outcomes. That's where you prevent and reverse these common diseases and you extend your life. Some 3 months later, I came back to Kalamazoo, the city in Michigan, for a special follow-up meeting of our CHIP graduates. The day before the meeting, I received a phone call from a Mrs. Brenner. Hello, Dr. Deal. I know you are in town. You have a special alumni meeting, don't you? Now, is there a chance that you could possibly feature my husband to give a report? Mr. Brenner? The Mayo Clinic man? That was the last man I wanted to see. He didn't make the changes. He would not make the turnaround. What would he say? And then, in an effort to create a common base, she said to me, Dr. Deal, you are an educator, aren't you? I'm an educator too. I'm teaching high school. We're both educators. Give my husband, please, a chance. It will be the best medicine that anybody could possibly give him. Please let him tell his story. It's a great story. He has practiced it. You won't be embarrassed. And then I let my heart make the decision rather than my head. I agreed to feature him at the alumni meeting the next night, but at once I began to worry. Did I really make the right decision to feature him? That next evening, I introduced Mr. Brenner. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a gentleman here from our last CHIP program, Mr. Boyd Brenner. He wants to give you a short report of what happened to him. He took the mic and he said, ladies and gentlemen, the 4 most important letters in the alphabet can be found in the 4 last letters of the word American. I can. And he said, I'm German. I'm a hunter. I had 9 heart attacks. If I can do it, anybody can do it. Look at my weight, how it came down from 100 to 97 to now 94 kilos. I've lost 6 kilos in those 3 months, and I've never eaten so much food in my life. And then he said, look at my blood sugar levels. They went from 205 down to 131. My blood sugar is now almost normal, and that without taking any insulin injections. I mean, I used to take 67 units of insulin, shooting up every day. No more. And look at my cholesterol. It went from 288 down to 128. That's unheard of. It's unbelievable. And no medications, just the diet. And look at my triglycerides. Before, they were over 2,000, and now they're only 400. And look at my blood pressures, 122 over 78, 120 over 80, 110 over 64. They're all normal blood pressures, except that the first values were controlled by 3 different blood pressure medications. But with my blood pressure normal now, these medications are all gone, and my blood pressure, my doctor said, is that of a teenager. And then finally, look at my pulse. It has gone from 78 beats a minute to 66 beats a minute to 56 beats a minute. I am obviously much more physically fit now. But look at the change in the quality of my life. My angina pain markedly decreased very rapidly. I was able to level off my bed and remove my recliner from my bedroom. I didn't need it anymore, and our bedroom now no longer looks like a sick person's room. It has been a marvelous experience. And something else happened. My neighbor has a beautiful German Shepherd dog. And I fell in love with this German Shepherd dog. And over the last 3 months, my 5 freezers with exotic meats are now totally empty. Of course, the dog has died since then of a heart attack. No, not really. But you know, Mr. Brenner, I said, what about that trip to Costa Rica in 3 more months? I'm going to get there. You just wait. And then I said, so Mr. Brenner, tell me, what was it that caused you to make those changes? Well, I just wanted to prove you wrong. I knew I couldn't believe you. I couldn't trust you. You're from Loma Linda. Look, I'm from the Mayo Clinic. That's where the big boys are. What's Loma Linda? And so I was going to embarrass you. I was going to do exactly like what you said. But instead, I actually went beyond that. You recommended 100%. I did 150%. You said walk every day 15 minutes. I would walk every day 30 minutes. I did everything more than what you said because I wanted to prove you wrong. But I lost. Well, actually, Mr. Brenner, I said, no, you didn't lose. You won. You won the struggle with yourself. And then, 3 months after that alumni meeting, this is the picture that I received from him. Take a good look. You see this? Unbelievable. I mean, he got that big fish. And when I ask people who know something about fish, they say, yeah, that's probably about a 30 to 40 kilogram fish. True. I don't know how he was able to do that, because with angina pain as a background, you cannot have those exertions without having significant angina attacks. He was able to do it because he had begun to reverse his heart disease. His diabetes was basically gone. His blood pressures had come to normal. He was a new man. And also, he had become softer on the inside. And he said, I'm so glad that I came to the CHIP program to help my wife. Yeah, it turned my life around. And then I asked him, by the way, what did you do with that big fish? Oh, he said, I had somebody take a picture of it so I could send it to you, and then I threw it back into the water because I don't eat this stuff anymore. Amazing story, isn't it? An amazing turnaround. Least expected, but it happened. So you see, when we talk about these kind of concepts from a scientific point of view, we oftentimes forget the people involved, people, real people struggling with these kind of things. They're not just statistics. They're real, breathing, loving people. Now, so these were two major stories. Here is another short story film for you. Take a look. From Dying to Loving, an unexpected turnaround. Take a look.
I was more or less, I could hardly work, I could hardly do anything. I was such bad shape. So I had to do something, and this was my last resort. It was really like the last resort. Doctors couldn't do anything more. I did some stem cell research and did some of that. That didn't help. So it was like it was a last resort. And what I say, thank God, Chip. That's I'm here today and I feel good, and everyone sees me and they say, boy, you look like $1 million now. You're just way better. So they pulled me out and they said, well, call your family in. So I called my son and some people in with me, and they go, you've got some major problems. And I go, what do you mean? And he says, well, you got 5 arteries plugged, 5 major ones plugged, starting at 100%, 99, 98, 96, 95, somewhere in there. Major.
You went then under the knife, right?
Yes, and had open heart surgery where they
Five
cut you open.
bypasses?
5 of them, yes. And a month later, I felt really, really tough. So I went in again.
Because now, when they go back to check, what did they find?
They found all 5 of them are plugged.
I mean, the
And
grafted vessels?
Yeah, the grafted vessels, yeah. They scarred up is what they call it.
Yeah,
they're not plugged, but they're scarred. And they're scarred up so much that they can't put a stent in there.
See, he had exhausted every possible medical intervention. He was now at a dead end, right? And then I guess, is that when Chip came in?
Yes, that's when Chip came in. I had nothing else I could do. The doctors couldn't do anything for me. They said, you are like a lazy 80-year-old man. That's your health. And I said, no, I'm not. I won't stand for this. Something's got to be done. And I said, well, I'll try it. And I did, and thank God it worked like a charm. It was great.
Maybe at this point in time, it would be a good opportunity for us to see how Tom is living. Because when he came into the program, it was a huge challenge. I felt a pretty big bunch of pressure on me because I didn't know if he was actually going to make it through the program or not. We were staring at our most challenging case yet. But we have a photo of Tom that I'd like us to look at now. And this is him after a year after taking the CHIP class. He's out there, he's digging his garden, not using a rototiller, he's using a spade.
Wow.
That is not a lazy 80-year-old man out there.
Now, you probably can tell from looking at my picture that I was much younger then. This was 14 years ago. And he is doing really well because he made the lifestyle changes and he maintained the lifestyle changes. So here is a thought question for all of you. What brought about the lifestyle changes? What motivated people to make the changes? Here are 6 spaces that you can fill in. But because we have sort of a lack of time, let me just give you some suggested answers. Number 1, sometimes people first have to experience a medical crisis to uncover that they have a need for help. Number 2, sometimes people refuse help. Why? Why did Mr. Brenner refuse any help? Well, I'm here because of my wife, right? That's what he said. Well, why did he refuse? Because number 3, there were obstacles in his life, in his understanding. There was a belief that he was told at the Cleveland Clinic, there's nothing we can do for you, and you have just picked the wrong parents. It's a genetic problem. Therefore, enjoy your life because it won't last very long. And so he gave in. And then you have reason number 4. What made the difference? Education and group support. This was the dawning of the light. You see, a light and hope came into his mind. Maybe there's something that I can do. And then number 5, he had this drive. He wanted to challenge this authority figure. He didn't want to be told anything by someone else because I'm a Mayo man. I know what's best. Don't come close to me. I know what I need to do. The challenge was there. And so then he wanted to embarrass me. And now he would do everything even more so than I had recommended. And then ultimately, he embraces the lifestyle. He accepts it. And then there's a clinical validation. The cholesterol runs down. The insulin is gone. He's no longer a man that is living off pills and procedures, but he is a man that has become a whole man again. He has become a new man, a complete man, a man that is moving out of his recliner where he sleeps back into the marital bedroom. Yeah. A wonderful experience, isn't it?
Hi, mabuhay! I'm Dr. Linda Lim Barona and I am a facilitator for the CHIP here at Philippine Publishing House. We have our regular sessions 3 days a week, and then we have our physical fitness, we have cooking demos, and after this CHIP program, we have shared the CHIP principle to our community. We have been having our Sunday fitness program, and the people from the community comes to give them health tips, not only about health but about cooking and lifestyle changes. There are around 600 people from the community that are participating, from the young to the old, ladies and gentlemen, and they are enjoying this exercise. The one leading our physical fitness is Alan, who had a heart attack 5 years ago, and he participated in CHIP. And now he's leading the exercises because he used to be a diabetic. He had a stent, but now everything, he has no more medicine.
Hi, mabuhay. I'm Alan. 6 years ago, I was a diabetic patient. I had a heart attack. I was suffering from hemolytic anemia. I had 4 months of consecutive blood transfusion, 4 bags every month. And I heard about CHIP. So I joined CHIP. I was taking 172 units of insulin a day, and after the 1-month program of CHIP, it went down to 25 units after a month. Then after 3 or 4 months, it's 0. Then now after 6 years of practicing the CHIP principles that I have learned from them, I'm now leading 6 days a week physical fitness program just to share what I have learned from CHIP. Every Sunday morning during our physical fitness program, we have now 600 people participating and attending to us regularly. Energetic and healthy people joining us every day, from children up to adults. Especially men, coming from my heart, I owe it from CHIP. I love CHIP, I'm endorsing CHIP, and thank you very much, CHIP program.
You know, it seems that Thomas Edison, that great inventor, was certainly a prophetic person when he said, "The doctor of the future will give no medicines, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease." And then to close, you have here Dr. Dean Ornish, my personal friend. He said, "For curing chronic diseases, the new prescription is lifestyle medicine. The most influential trend in medicine today, growing exponentially, is the emerging medical field of lifestyle medicine. Lifestyle as medicine is providing effective curative treatment for modern killer diseases." Yeah, take a look, think about it. These people that I have shared with you have learned that health is not a matter of chance. Health is clearly a matter of choice. So, blessings to all of you, and welcome to the world of lifestyle medicine.